Hey guys, Linkek here. This is a follow-up on my previous video about the M1 Jungle Carbine, and of course, as I explained to you before, I wanted to get an M1, M14 stock that I could learn how to bed an M1. And so I did that. I got it, and you saw that what I had for stock on it and stuff. It was an original M14 stock of probably Vietnam era. And so I got to looking at it, and I know that most everybody else that I've ever seen, they bed an M1, they get in there with their Dremel and they router out stuff inside the stock, and then they epoxy or glass bed it and all that stuff, and they have to go through the mess of making sure that it doesn't get glued in, the receiver doesn't get glued into the stock and all that. And it's fairly messy process, I think. So in thinking about this, I think I've come up with another way, which ultimately I think will be better, and for a couple different reasons. And I think is a lot less invasive on the stock, but nevertheless I think it will work just fine. And so I want to get to show you that. So let me show you what I got going on. All right, guys, this is what I've come up with. It occurred to me that there's all this bedding surfaces on an M1. There is no radiuses, there is no rounds or curves. You have a flat surface here to control the bedding of it to the stock. And then you have two straight surfaces on the inside here, which correspond to these here. So in my mind, I'm thinking, wouldn't it be easier just to take and make a couple of shims, which I've done, a couple of brass shims, that, as you can see, fits right there. Right? And I've made, and why I think this is better than epoxy in it or glass bedding it is because during the course of this process of figuring out how to do this, what I've done is I'm able, by a thickness on the left side of the receiver, I've got 16 thousandths shim. And on the right side, I have a 5 thousandths brass shim. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to center the barrel in the barrel channel. When I put this together, when I originally put this stock in, the receiver into the stock and put the trigger housing back in it, it had a tendency to be the barrel going to the left side of the barrel channel, which, as I've said before, these were mass-produced. They didn't, let's just say this, they're not built like Swiss K31s. But for the most part, they got most of it, the geometry and everything right. So I don't see that there's any reason to modify any of that. But so my thought is this, is I am going to take, and if you can see this, let's scooch my light over here a little bit. I can put this shim in there. Can you see that? I've got that in there, and of course this one on this side, and I've already put these in and tested them, and when I put these in and put the receiver in it, it's tight, it's freaking tight, like you want to see. So my thought is I am going to take and glue these. I'm going to use some Gorilla Glue, and I'm going to glue these I'm going to put these in there and glue them in there. And then I'm going to put it together, put the receiver in it and all that, put it all together like it's supposed to be. And that's what's going to shim it. That's what's going to take and cause the lateral movement of the receiver in the stock to go away. It's going to tighten that whole thing up. And I think, in my mind, I am thinking that that is a better way to do this than the route of glass bedding it with all the stuff that goes with doing that. But so at any rate, that's how I'm going to do this. And so I'm just now getting to the point where I'm getting ready to put some glue in here, and on this side too, and glue these things in and put it together. And of course, I'll let it sit, let it sit overnight to let the glue set up and harden. And we'll see what happens. And ultimately, what I mean is, it's totally non-invasive to the stock. You're not modifying the stock in any way permanently. And so that's my drift. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and use some of this Gorilla Glue and put it in there, and I'm going to see if I can put this whole thing together and get those things glued in there. So, all right, as you can see, I put the shims in, I glued them in, I put the receiver into the stock, and so now what I'm going to do is I'll just let it sit overnight, and we will come back tomorrow and pull it out and see how it all looks, see if it looks like this thing's going to work. So, all right, guys, I will be back mañana. All right, guys, this is the next day, and what I've done is, if you can see this, I'll put my light down over here. I've taken and put a block of wood in the vise, of course, and I've already loosened it up. It took, because it was in there. I took and put it like that, and I gave it a couple of sharp whacks on the butt here a couple times, and it came loose. And so this is what we got. Like I say, I've already pulled it loose once, but as you can see, it's very tight. It's just the way it's supposed to be. And can you see that? There's the brass shim I glued in. On that side, I got a little bit of excess glue in there I'll pick out, but it looks like it all worked pretty well. And as you guys can see, this yeah, see, that fits in there tight, right? See, it ain't going anywhere. All right, so as you can see here, this is with the receiver in the stock, shims in place. And what I did was, in not only just tightening it up, I could shim the difference in it so that I can get the barrel to sit in the center of the barrel channel. Can you see that there? How that is centered right in where it belongs? So that was another reason I did it the way I did it. So I'm going to continue to put this thing together. My next step will be to get do what I need to do to get the trigger housing. Do what I need to do to get the trigger housing to latch in and tighten down as much as I need to do. It usually requires shimming the pads on the stock where the trigger loading surfaces are. All right, so what I've gone and done here is, as you can see, I have epoxied. I didn't glue. I epoxied shims into the back here for this part of the trigger housing. Of course, I put a little grease on it so stuff wouldn't stick to it. And then up two shims, I epoxied two shims up here on the for the front pads on the trigger housing. And what this is a 32 thousandths shim in the back here, and these are 16 thousandths of an inch shims in the front. And that, when I put it together, that gives me the tension that I want to see when I'm snapping the trigger closed on it. But now that I've had it together, I can see too. I can see that the op rod guide is hitting the stock right here. So I suppose the next thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to have to take that down a little bit so that we don't have that issue. And so yeah, that's where we're at. Once again, there's the brass shims I glued into the stock for tightening it up, and it worked very well. Actually, it worked real well. And I got a couple other things to do on it, and my final step will be to stain the stock, put it back to dark walnut, and then God, I suppose at some point we're going to have to take it and do a range test with it. All right, guys, this is kind of the final episode, so to speak, of the M1 Jungle Carbine. I got it pretty much put together, and this is what it is. Right? I think it turned out pretty darn good. Yep, just like that. Everything is fitted. Everything is fitted the way it should be. As you saw how I went about bedding the stock, I think that worked out superbly. So yeah, next thing to do would be to take and bring it to the range and do a little range test on it. So there you go, guys. This is Len Keck over and out on the M1 Jungle Carbine.